was flying up here from California to beautiful British Columbia on the Delta flight. I was watching this Kevin Costner's new film, Horizon, which of course tells the story of the settlers from back in the day moving from east to the west, talking about all the challenges. And it's quite a graphic movie that shows the struggles that these people went through. And as I'm sitting here, it's a beautiful, cold, wet Canadian Saturday here. We have this campfire going here. I'm reminded in the back of my head of this movie here of what the settlers, let's face it, as you're going to find out here in a moment, we have right now today, we have a lot of options when it comes to heating up in the inside of our tents during our winter adventures and so forth. Back then, this is all they had. And campfire is a must-have. Personally, when we don't have fire bans, a fire it's a necessity. You can cook on it, you have the heat. You can sit at it, stare at night with your drink in hand and just lose yourself watching the flames dance around. But the disadvantage to a fire, not to be Captain Obvious here, is when you want to get this heat from here to inside your tent, well, as you can imagine, this is where things kind of fall apart.
Oh, sure. Well, that makes sense.
And that's what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be discussing how you can keep warm during the winter months, which again happens to be my favorite time for camping. So with that said, let's get on it. All right, friends, how amazing is this? Last night, Caleb and I flew up from LAX all the way up to Vancouver, and I'm 3.5 hours. I came close to saying Vancouver, where I'm at right now, but that's where I flew in. Dimitri, where are we at?
British Columbia.
Beautiful British Columbia. Now, all I know is we drove, 2.5, 3 hours from where I was down near Vancouver all the way up into this majestic, wow. I'm going to put some B-roll on the screen here so you can just really appreciate where I'm at here. It is absolutely stunning. But this video here is not about the landscape, although come on, you gotta love this here. I'm gonna be talking to you about different ways that you can stay warm during your winter camping adventures. Now, if you follow this channel for any duration of time, over the last 5 years, one of the things I've become quite the preacher for are these diesel heaters right here. And the fine folks with Planar Heaters were kind enough to allow my son and I to come up here. They have a new heater here, which we're going to be talking about here in just a moment. But many of you know or recognize this probably yellow case, although this is a smaller heater than what I normally carry around. This is a 2 kilowatt, which we're going to talk about that number here in a moment. The one that I go carrying around that I've been using and beating the hell out of for the last 5 years is a 4 kilowatt, which is technically double the size, double the BTUs as something like this. But at any rate, in this video here, let's talk about not only different ways that you can stay warm during the winter months, but ultimately at the end, I'm going to talk to you about this brand new shiny green beast of a heater right here in front of me. This is the new heater that they just came out with this year. And then also we're going to do a quick demonstration. I have a couple tents behind me. I'm going to show you how simple it is to set these things up. Unlike our forefathers, I keep calling it forefathers, the settlers back in the day and so forth, and setting up a fire, which does take a certain degree of time, setting up a heater or a heat source like this is a breeze. But anyway, with that said, let's get on to different ways that you can heat your winter adventures. Now, look, like anything else, we are all going to have our preferences, and depending upon where you're at, it's going to determine which heat source is going to work best for you. Now, if you want my 2 cents,
sure, why not?
Well, hey, you're watching this video, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents whether you like it or not. But there are some that I think are just inefficient and really are not good for if you're out in a beautiful place like this where you don't get any cell reception. There's only a few options that really are going to work the best. Now, starting off, we're going to talk about electricity. I'm starting off with this one because it's the black sheep. It is the one that I think is the most inefficient and doesn't make sense if you're out there overlanding and so forth. The reason being is in order to heat up a tent, even a small tent like this, you're going to need a solid, I'm just guesstimating here, a good 1,000 to 1,500 watt heater to make a dent into this. Now, this all depends upon how cold you are at, where you're camping, and this and that, and also your tolerance, comfort level. So there's a lot of moving parts with this, but let's just round it off to 1,000 watts. Now, a typical battery these days, you're going to have 1,000, 2,000 watts. If you have a 1,000-watt battery, well, guess what? That heater is only going to run for an hour, which is not going to really do you too good.
That won't work.
Now, I have that big old Goal Zero 4,000 watt beast of a battery. Now that thing weighs 108 pounds. Now, if you want to go lugging that thing out, that's 4,000 watts right there. Still, that big ass heavy battery is only going to last you about 4 hours with a 1,000-watt electric heater, which again, considering a tent has very little R value, that's really not going to do much good for you. So anyways, you're not going to hear me ever preaching about electric heaters. Now, moving up, we have propane heaters. There are a handful of different options out there. Now, one of the popular options is, of course, the trusty buddy heater.
I'm Buddy.
Now, I have a lot of friends. I used to own a buddy heater, and they are good for what they are. But personally, here are a few things. Again, if you've watched these videos, you know exactly where I'm leaning with this. I don't like buddy heaters, certainly inside of a tent. The reason being is you have moisture that is generated off of these things. So you'll wake up, if you run that thing overnight, which you really should in a tent, unless you have an extreme amount of ventilation, for you have the carbon monoxide, dioxide, or all this other stuff that is being created off this, which as humans, where we need oxygen to breathe, that is not a good thing. But you'll wake up and you'll have a lot of moisture, and that is a thing that just drives me up the wall.
Yep, me too.
So propane heaters, that is not, I'm not sure. On the camera here, you might have noticed, because I heard it right here, this whole time that I've been here, I have been watching, and I'm being told here there's like a big fish like this. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say it was like this big.
That's a big fish.
But either way, you probably see a bunch of fish behind there jumping up. I wish I had a rod and reel. Man, I didn't think this trip through. Anyway, so buddy heaters, not only are they a fire hazard, you're technically not supposed to run them through. Ask any fire department about these, and they will probably have a handful of horror stories of people burning places down, tents down, this and that. It is just not a good option that I personally feel comfortable about recommending. Now, a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, we started getting a lot of questions from you all on particularly cheap Chinese diesel heaters. So that lit the fuse of my curiosity with diesel heaters, because frankly, prior to that, I didn't have much experience with them. So I went out there and I think it was 134 bucks. I went on to Amazon, and one of the heaters that you guys had recommended, and I went out there, and that started a whole chain reaction of testing these various different Chinese diesel heaters and so forth. And man, you know what a train wreck those things were. Of course, as you're going to find out with this video, and for reasons that I flew all the way up to Vancouver, I am a big advocate of quality diesel heaters. Now, the Chinese ones, man, I get it. You're tempted with the apple, so you bite. 134 bucks, how bad can it be? I remember, man, it was smoking, and I'll probably put some B-roll on the screen here showing this thing. It was so darn cold. It was like 13 degrees up there. The thing was running rich. It was blowing so much smoke. I had to wake up 2 a.m. in the morning. That damn thing had run out already. Let me tell you this. When you're all comfy in your sleeping bag and you have to roll out of bed to get outside pouring diesel, you're getting cold diesel all over your hands, trying to get it going.
Hell no!
That is not a good thing. That was not. So, and over the years, I've tested quite a handful of other inexpensive Chinese diesel heaters, and I can tell you I'm up to 6 or 7 of them right now, and I have not had a single positive experience with any of them. That said, we come on to the Planar diesel heaters. Now, I have tested Webasto, S-Bar. When it comes to diesel heaters, there's a few leaders out there. Again, you have Webasto, S-Bar, Planair, these guys right here, and these are all good heaters. Now, I particularly like these because I find the fuel.
What did you say?
If I could talk, the fuel pump is quieter with these right here. And on top of that, 5 years, I had a 2 kilowatt one that was mounted in the front of my Turtleback Expedition trailer. And then the portable one that we were just talking about a moment ago is a 4 kilowatt. Now, I've beaten the hell out of that thing. I even made a joke in this article that this video is going to be going and talking about, last year I did a video on maintenance that you should be doing with these diesel heaters. And the truth be told is, I preached it, but I never follow what I say with these things. I tell you that you're supposed to run it every month. Manufacturer recommends that. I tell you that you should drain the fuel out of that, which the manufacturer says if you're going to store it, drain all the fuel out of it, because diesel, when it sets, it glues up and becomes all gunked up and everything. It's not a good thing. And I don't do any of that. You know, for the last 4 years, the heater sits during the summer, spring months, and with the same nasty fuel that is in there in winter time, it's like rolling the dice and see if it'll start every single winter. My heater has started up every single time. Absolutely love that thing. So that said, let's shift into what makes a diesel heater so amazing. Unlike the propane that I mentioned a moment ago, the buddy heater, when you think about those 1 pound tanks. Now, those 1 pound tanks, I know down in Home Depot down in California, they're going to cost you about $6 a pop. And when you look at the runtime that you're getting with that, it equates to about $2.50 per hour to be able to run that buddy heater based upon run that thing on full steam. My 4 kilowatt diesel heater, alternatively, based on fuel, I calculated this a little while back at $5.89 per gallon for diesel, and the runtime on this, it equates to like 41 cents an hour to run a diesel heater. So from an efficiency standpoint, the diesel heater is your winning horse. Now, that said, unlike the propane is going to be pushing out warm air. Well, actually, it's not. It's a radiant heat that's kind of pushing out. So this is actually literally pushing out heat, but it's dry heat. And that's the thing, for me, was a game changer to why I enjoy winter camping so much more than summer camping. Because, you know, let's face it, if you have the heat source down, it's blowing dry heat into your tent. There's a lot less people around. It's beautiful, and it's just absolutely amazing. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about a diesel heater is, okay, with a heater like this, you can actually run it on 2 different fuel sources. You can run it on diesel or kerosene. Now, I do want to emphasize that you want to run it on K1 kerosene. Don't use any of those kerosene alternatives. I've learned from the hard way, heaters don't really like that. And the next thing that's really important with a diesel heater is you want to have a good, solid power source. Now, this heater right here, this has a single power source that you're going to be able to run. You're going to use this on a 12-volt battery. This heater, which again, we're going to talk about this one here in a minute. This one you can actually run on both AC as well as DC as well. So you get a little bit more options with this thing here. But for most people, a heater like this is going to be more than plenty what you need. And especially when it comes to heating your winter adventures, this is going to be pretty much what the doctor ordered. Now, all you others getting out in the Arctic and have a little bit more colder needs, again, we're going to talk about this one here in a moment. That's going to be something that you seriously want to take a look at. Now, let's take a look at the anatomy of a heater. Actually, before I crack this thing open. So these things are pretty straightforward. And so it's an all-in-one unit. You have a fuel tank off to the side here. This is your exhaust coming out. Oh, no, excuse me. This is your air intake. Here is your exhaust. Now with this one, you have 2 plugs that you're going to be utilizing right here. One's going to be going to your controller, which is going to control the temperature. Now these guys have 2 different types of controllers. They have an analog one, and I don't know which one's in here, but either way, we'll find out pretty fast. They have the analog one, and they also have a digital one. The digital one, which is an upgrade, has all sorts of, you guys have seen it on the channel before. That's what I use on mine. Anyway, you're going to plug those buggers in right there. One thing with a diesel heater, which is absolutely important, super important, however you plug this thing in, you want to make sure that that is a solid connection. You want to make sure that if you're plugging it into a battery, it's a good tight connection, because if that connection breaks, if somebody steps over the line and it cuts the power to the diesel heater, that can actually create harm to the heater itself. That is very, very important, and we're going to brush on that with this one as well. Now, that said, I think I've covered what I wanted to. This is pretty exciting because this is actually a 2 kilowatt. So again, this is the smaller brother to the 4 kilowatt that I have. Now these are Planar or Pelican cases, which these things are pretty durable as well. And with that said, you're gonna crack it open. Now, as soon as I open this thing up here, wow, I noticed a few things right away that were a little bit different from the 4 kilowatt unit that I've been using for the last 5 years here. First off, well, actually, this is it right here. If you look at, you have this panel, this perforated panel that they have built in here, and you have one down on the door that opens up there as well, and that's holding our wires. This actually opens up. Oh, actually, here we go right here. Oh, awesome. Actually, there are 2 controllers here. Okay, so these are both, so I can show you. This is the one with the little turning knob thing. That is your analog. And then, of course, the square one, of course, is the digital, and that is a touchscreen as well. So, and these, they have all these quick connect connectors here that you can use with these. But I thought this was a really nice touch. So, you know, right off the get-go, you can see this heater is considerably smaller than the 4 kilowatt that I use. Now, if you want my 2 cents, if you're out there with any sort of tent, if you're getting one of these things, I'm going to recommend going with the 4 kilowatt anyway. The 2 kilowatt, which was nice in my turtleback, I only used it for the rooftop tent. But having a 4 kilowatt, the reason why I'm recommending that, now it is going to cost a little bit more money, but the reason why I'm recommending that, if you have the budget, not only does it give you more flexibility in heat in colder areas when you have your tents, but also, let's say you have a power outage in your home or you were working out in your garage, you can use this. A 4 kilowatt is going to obviously heat up a lot more space, and it's going to be much more utility out of it. It's more future proof if you decide to get a larger tent and so forth. 2 kilowatt though, it's a nice option. The case is a little bit smaller, and obviously the fuel consumption of this is going to last you a little bit longer. But at any rate, so that is that with this bugger right here. Now, oops, I just realized I was going to show you this. So here is, we'll make this quick with this because then we'll shift over. We're going to talk about this new Arctic beast that they have here. So, anyway, to utilize this heater right here, we're going to plug in, again, you have these quick connects. So this is going to your 12 volt source. You're going to plug that into the 1 pin right there. And again, you have that clicking noise, so you know you have a good solid connection. And the same with the thermostat. You're going to plug that in, and you're going to wait for that clicking noise, boom, and you are off to the races. Now, a couple quick tips, because I get this question quite often. How close can you fit this? Do you get fumes coming into your tent? No, I mean, in all reality, you know, look, if you, well, let me rephrase this. If you have a quality heater, like these Planars right here, this thing, mine has never, you know what, no, last winter, after I started it up with that same sludge that was sitting in it for all summer, I did get just a tad little smoke out of it for about 15 seconds, and it's just blowing out all the crap that's been sitting in it all summer and so forth. After that, it ran clear. Now, for those of you that go out there and decide to go with a cheap Chinese diesel heater like that H-Calorie that I tested last year, I got to put it on the screen here. This is what you're going to face. This thing was smoking more like Mount Everest getting ready to blow its lid off. And actually what's funny is that heater it was blowing out a bunch of soot. I had a pile of soot on the ground and so forth. If you have a heater like that, you want to get it away from your tent. Now the downside with a diesel heater is you want to get it as close to your tent as possible, because when you have these long hoses in cold environments, those hoses, unless they are wrapped with insulation, you're going to lose heat. So you want to keep it close to proximity to your tent. A good quality heater, though, you're not going to have any exhaust problems coming inside your tent, and that's a big plus with there. So anyways, that is that. So friends, I'm going to move this. I'm going to put this down here. I'm going to put this right there, and now we're going to talk about this green Arctic right here. This thing is an absolute beast. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, most of you, that heater right there in a 2 kilowatt or a 4 kilowatt is going to be all you need. Now, for the rest of you that are going up into the extreme cold climates and so forth, or just simply want the best of the best, this is the heater for you here. Now, the main differences with this heater right here, as we're going to find out here, is now this heater right here, you can only have one power source. That is 12 volt. With this one, you can have AC and DC. And plus, also with this case right here, this one right here, you're going to find out that the wires that they're using with this right here are extremely heavy duty. So these things, this machine right here is designed for crazy cold temps. And that's really who that avatar, who that person is buying this here is people that are going to be out in some extreme cold conditions. Now, so we have that. We have these heavy duty wires, which again, we're going to talk a little bit more about those in a moment. We have, now a moment ago, let me get this bugger out right here. This is the case. This is actually our controller. And so again, you have this crazy heavy duty wire. So again, you can notice, and this is, man, I bet you can step on this damn thing. You're not going to do anything to the controller itself. Not that I've stepped on mine, but this thing is, they've leveled it up quite a bit. Anyway, and if you look at the inside of this, even to the 4 kilowatt, this is a 4 kilowatt, the same size as the yellow one that I've been using for the last 5 years. And you'll notice the signature of it is semi-ish the same. The difference is you have this inverter box up on the top, and over on the left hand side over here you have that AC DC switch. Now I figure out which direction we're going to go with this. Okay, let's do this here. We're going to plug these buggers in right here. So we're going to play show and tell a little bit on this here so you can see how this works, how this is a little bit different from that heater right there. On the side right here, okay, here is, we have these quick connects right here. And the one thing that I noticed right away is if you look at these right here, these are very similar. Many of you know, I'm in the photography industry, and I have lights that utilize these same sort of quick connects, which is pretty awesome. Pop it in, boom, that is pretty awesome. Now, so that's your controller right there. I'm going to spin this around. Okay, so you have, I'm not going to take this out of the connector, but here you have this big, beefy AC adapter, and AC is on top. So you pull this rubber grommet thing up. You have this. We're going to plop that in there. You push it in, twist up, and you're going to hear that click noise, and so you know you have that securely planted in there, just like the connectors on that one, which are more of a plastic audible sound that you're going to hear. All right, something important. If you plan to use this AC, make sure the switch inside this thing is set up ahead of time. If you plan to use DC, switch it or AC, you can't do that. You need to figure out which one you're going to use ahead of time. All right, let's say you want to use DC. Again, you're going to pull this little metal thing back here, a little thing right there, and you're going to twist out and off you go. And the same thing applies with the DC. Flip up the rubber grommet, push it in, twist up, and you hear that audible click, and you are off to the races. Anyway, you have a red and black here, which in a minute we're going to set this up on the battery. You're going to see how that works. All right, so before we play show and tell and get this going on to the tents here, let me share with you. So the switch here, which I thought was pretty stinking cool what these guys did here. So when I first saw the toggle switch, I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, oh wait, again, people accidentally hit it, switch it, and if you're running AC and you accidentally hit it over to DC, that would be problematic. But no, you can't do that. You actually have to pull out and move up in order to move it from one to another, which is going to prevent accidental hits and strikes and so forth. Although on my 4 kilowatt, what I'm going to show you right now, you actually have to, it's not set up out of the gate to do this. And if I can get that latch there, okay. So on my 4 kilowatt, you'll notice that this piece right here is actually facing in. On this one, it is primed, locked, and loaded. So if you're in some extreme cold conditions and so forth, you can actually run 2 pipes going into your tent here. Now I'm going to borrow a pipe here Awesome, awesome. Okay. So, when you're in super cold climate, conditions rather, and you're gonna take an additional hose, you're gonna put it onto here. This is gonna go inside your tent. It kind of works very similar like an air conditioning system, that recycling of air and so forth. So it's gonna be pulling the semi-warm, cold, whatever air that's inside your tent. It's gonna pump it in here so the heater has less work to do. And this is your output right here. So that's gonna go into your tent. So like an air conditioning works in the summer, and how it becomes efficient is it's pulling the air from inside your tent. Same thing's happening here. The heater element has less work to do, and it's able to spit out hotter air more efficiently inside your tent. It's pretty awesome. But anyway, so this one is plumbed and ready to go with it. Oh, interesting. They have the butterfly key clamp on this, which is going to make it much more easier to get a hold of during cold weather to begin with. Okay, well friends, that is, oh, actually one other thing I want to point out here while we're at it here. It's the little things that really add up. You know, these bugs are flying around I'm surprised because it's relatively cold out here right now. All right. One of the last things I noticed with this here is on the gas tank, there's actually a little chain that keeps your gas cap in check. So if you ever set it down, or you ever somebody like me that puts it down and then you end up losing it or putting it down on the ground and so forth, well, you don't have to worry about there because there is a stainless steel chain that's connecting it to the body of this. But friends, that is it. Now the Arctic is available in this green, this OD green, which I think looks absolutely badass, and then also a graphite as well. All right. Enough of me jibber jabbering. I'm gonna go set this up and then we'll shift over there and we'll close off with that. Okay, so I decided to go with a dual tent setup because let's face it, over the last 5 years, well, you guys have seen plenty of videos of me setting up a single tent setup. So I wanted to play show and tell because let's face it, camping with a buddy or friends is so much fun. And not everybody's gonna have a good solid heat source, so you get to be the hero, and all it requires, they make these T-connectors that allows you to take a single line coming out of a diesel heater, and then you can actually split it off and feed 2 tents amazing dry heat. That is pretty stinking cool. Now, we have this Arctic heater right here, and if I'm gonna play a little bit more show and tell with this here, we have our controller, which the cool part about this right here, this has a pretty lengthy cable with this. Once this heater is running, I'm going to move this to inside of the tent so I can control this when I am during the night and through the morning and all that other fun stuff there. But anyway, on the back side of this here, we have our DC cable, because in this particular setup, I'm going to be powering it off of this battery right here, this Ultimatron 12-volt battery. I'm going to plug this into here. Now, normally, I would set this battery under cover, away from the heater and so forth, and out of the element and so forth. But for show and tell purposes here, I'm going to put that, you know, right there. Now, before I go attaching these cables to this, one last thing I'm going to check here. Remember that switch I told you about earlier? I'm going to make sure that it is set to 12 volt. In this particular case, it is already set to 12 volt. I'm going to close this up right here. Boom, boom, boom. Alrighty. Now this is pretty straightforward. I'm going to take my connectors off. I'm going to put my ground down first. I don't have a screwdriver on me, so I'm just going to hand tight these here and it'll be fine. Okay, boom. Put my positive on there. And boom, friends, we're ready to go to the races. Now I'm going to grab my control box right here. Oops. All right. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to push, pull this thing out, and off we go. And the next thing all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing on. We have a green light that is showing that we have power, and one of the coolest sounds when you're out in a cold environment hearing one of these things fire up. Okay, so here we go right here. You can see the temperature, the ambient temperature outside is 49.4 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this right over to here. You can see this heater has been running for about 12 minutes now. Inside of here, it's 71 degrees. And if we bring our sensor right in front of the heat here, you can quickly see, hang that out here for a minute, you can get a sense of how warm that air is.
12 seconds later.
All right, so as you can see here, we have some serious warm heat coming out of this thing right here.
Oh, that's hot.
164.5 degrees or so, give or take right around there. Either way, that is really stinking warm temperatures. Well, friends, that is all I have. Again, this video here, as you can see, there are a number of ways that you can heat or stay warm during the winter. Some are more efficient than others. Obviously, you can see the clear winner for me. Diesel heaters is really the way to go. And again, it's all about positioning yourself with the right equipment. I've said this many times before, what you put into something is what you get out of it. You treat something, there are certain areas. Now, you know, it's funny, as I talk about this, I'm reminded that in the photography space, you know, there's a couple items that you want to get where you want to flex your budget because they're super important. One of those items is a tripod because it's holding up your expensive camera. And the other one is good filters and so forth. But camping is the same way. There's a couple items that you really want to flex your budget in. A good, comfortable chair is absolutely worth its weight in gold.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
And of course, if you plan to do a significant amount of winter camping, or you want to be able to stay warm when you are heading out and so forth, investing into a good diesel heaters, not only there's a certain degree of safety that comes along with a good quality diesel heater.
Yeah, that's a fact.
But also, you just get a lot more longevity out of it as well. I thought I felt some water coming through. I'm standing near. I had to come down here to shoot this last frame here because, I mean, again, look, this is absolutely so beautiful here. In a minute when I'm done here, my son and I are going to throw some rocks into this thing here, see who can skip a rock the farthest. But anyway, friends, that, what's that? We'll see about that. Anyway, well, look, it's been great catching up with you guys here. I hope you found some value with this video here. Now, if you do have any questions on any of these, anything that I have covered in this video here, by all means, leave a comment down below, reach out to me. I will do what I can to get those answers to you. But friends, I'm going to be turning off the camera so you get out there, stay healthy. Caleb, what do you say?
Bye.
Okay, you take your, no, wait.
Take your best shot.
No, take your best shot as photography talk. Get out there and find your adventure. You say it.
Get out there and find your adventure.
All right, let's go throw some rocks.